Eastern Avenue Winter Maintenance Yard. Behind those doors, dozens of plows are on standby as the city gets set for the first significant storm of the new year. That storm now expected to dump more snow on Toronto than originally forecast. We'll get to the details in a moment, but first, the city says its storm preparations are already well underway.
On Thursday night, we were able to get our anti-icing equipment out, which actually lays brine down on our main arterial roadways, expressways, hills, and bridges in anticipation for the storm. So when the storm comes in Saturday morning, as we're forecasting, the first round of snow that falls onto the asphalt should melt.
So plows are on standby in anticipation of the coming conditions. Officials are recommending people stay off the roads tomorrow if possible, and they're reminding homeowners to shovel their sidewalks. The city says local streets won't get plowed until there's at least 8 centimeters of snow on the ground. And we are going to get much more than that, Colette.
Yes, we are looking at a significant amount of snow coming in here, Dwight, and we've been talking about it all this week. It's still within the general range of 10 to 20 centimeters, but in many cases, it's towards that higher end, what we'll be seeing. Now, as it's almost on our doorstep, Environment Canada this afternoon did go ahead and issue snowfall warnings. We're seeing those throughout eastern and southwestern Ontario, stretching up into northern Ontario, and there we even start to get into some winter storm warnings. Where is it now? Well, it's still pushing through the Ohio Valley. It's on its way in. Towards midnight, it's going to come towards southwestern Ontario, begin as some flurries and then light snow there. The cloud deck has already been pushing in across the GTA, but it will be towards tomorrow morning before we really start to see this moving in. Now, there may be some flurries kind of scattered overnight tonight and early tomorrow morning, some light flurries, but then it becomes light snow in the morning hours, then becomes more intense and continuous as we go through the day. We get into those higher accumulations. The winds will be strong as well, Dwight, blowing it around, reducing visibility. And then late day, as the temperature continues to rise into tomorrow evening, we could see a bit of a mix or some rain on top of that snow. So you almost want to get out there and kind of shovel Saturday evening and get away what you can so you don't end up with ice on top of heavy snow. In terms of Sunday, things do improve, but the winds will be strong in the morning hours. So it'll still blow around any flurries that are coming down. And in a few areas, we will likely see some snow squalls setting up as well. So know about that if you do have any travel plans. It's really not looking good this weekend. The best window, though, is probably, other than in the snow squalls, into Sunday afternoon. Snow accumulations, we could be pushing that 15 to 20 centimeters in Toronto, around 15 back towards southwestern Ontario, slightly lesser amounts through the Golden Horseshoe. But Dwight, Cottage Country, maybe over 20 centimeters. More on this is coming up.
Note to self, start shoveling Saturday evening. Thank you, Colette.
Date night with a shovel.
You got it. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
And remember, you can track the city's snow plows in real time online. Just head to toronto.ca/plowto. People in Newfoundland are riding out one of the worst snowstorms they've seen in years. No one is supposed to be on the roads except those driving emergency vehicles. Winds are picking up and have been recorded upwards of 165 kilometers an hour. Oh yeah, 75 centimeters of snow is expected. Killa Hounsel has the latest.
The City of St. John says the state of emergency will remain in effect until further notice. It means all businesses have been ordered to close and all vehicles other than emergency vehicles have been ordered off the roads. Schools and government buildings have also closed and flights have been grounded. Newfoundland is experiencing extremely high winds, very heavy snowfall and storm surge, and it is expected to continue well into tomorrow. Most people seem to be heeding the warnings and staying off the roads. We were out on the roads for a couple of hours very early this morning before that state of emergency went into effect, and even then it was very difficult to climb those steep hills downtown St. John's is known for. Since then, we have seen photographs of cars almost completely buried in snow. And those winds, it's taking my breath away. They have picked up and intensified dramatically. Canada's Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness tweeted this afternoon that the federal government is monitoring the severe weather here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that the government is ready to help if necessary. The St. John's mayor is urging people to stay home until the state of emergency has been lifted.
One of the challenges is the wind is expected to come up to very, very high levels this afternoon. Of course, that brings about a whole array of other concerns, such as power outages, etc. So we're prepared to deal with those, whatever may arise.
Newfoundland has already received an unusually high snowfall this year with 170 centimeters since December, and the worst is yet to come. Meteorologists are calling this the worst storm they've seen in many, many years. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, St. John's.
So we're going to ask people to have flashlights, snacks, water, everything prepared, in your home, and certainly stay home.
Key part of that, snacks. Still ahead, we look into the East Coast phenomenon that is storm chips. That's coming up at 6:30. It was a meeting planned months ago, but given that phones were buzzing last weekend with an alert about an incident at the Pickering nuclear plant, today's Durham Nuclear Health Committee gathering took on some added significance. Lorenda Redekop now with why area residents wanted to be there.
It's been 5 days since that false alarm about the Pickering nuclear plant. Today, people got a chance to raise concerns about what happened.
I hope that when they send out alerts, that they use language that is not as vague. To say that an incident happened at Pickering, what does that mean?
They decided to use something much more expensive.
In AJ Keogh's case, his phone is not part of the faster LTE network. He chooses a cheaper option. Turns out all cell phone alerts, whether for a nuclear issue or anything else, only come through the LTE system.
And therefore, I didn't get the alert. If I'm sitting on a bus and across from me there is an abducted child with an adult, I'm going to be oblivious to their situation because I will not get the Amber Alert on my cell phone.
This meeting was scheduled months ago. But given that accidental alert, the entire first section was instead devoted to what happened. Emergency management officials say they knew within minutes that it was a false alarm.
There was a period of time they did not know. So I had information, and one of our biggest issues was how do we tell the rest of the population what we know?
The province has accepted responsibility for what happened and promised to investigate. No one from the government was at today's meeting, but yesterday the minister responsible gave an update.
I am not going to presuppose an outcome. I am not going to impose a deadline that means we don't drill down exactly how and why it happened.
She says it appears regular testing at the province's Emergency Operations Centre mistakenly went public. At today's meeting, they updated how many people have ordered the free potassium iodine pills online. Close to 56,000 people as of end of day yesterday. The pills protect the thyroid gland from radiation in the event of a nuclear emergency. Local officials want to make sure people understand that was not the risk on the weekend.
There was no issue at the facility. This was a provincial alerting issue.
It's unknown when the province's investigation could finish. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Whitby.
Take vaccines out of the name, and then that way you won't get flagged.
Going inside the anti-vax movement, we dig into what some consider the biggest public health threat of our time.
People around the world have stopped vaccinating because of the rhetoric that they've read online, and people are actually dying.
The CBC Marketplace investigation coming up. Residents of 650 Parliament Street will finally be returning home after a catastrophic fire 2 summers ago. 15,000 people were forced out of their apartments in August 2018 after an electrical fire tore through the high-rise. 2.5 years later, the 22-story building will be fully repopulated. It'll happen over an 11-week period in a controlled process. Starting March 2nd, residents will begin to reoccupy the building by floor. 2 floors per week will move back in, starting with the top 2 floors. Today's announcement also confirmed that residents will not face any rent increases upon their return. And Toronto is getting taller. According to numbers from the Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, the city is on track to surpass Chicago in its number of skyscrapers. That would put us at number 2 in North America for the most buildings over 150 meters tall. Talia Ricci has more from the city's tallest building.
What are some of your thoughts when you see this view and you see the cranes in the sky and how Toronto is changing?
Well, I mean, as we were coming up the elevator, the tour guide talked about how the skyscrapers have changed as the city's going to cross. And when I look back here, most of this has happened in the last couple decades. It's an amazing transformation.
Toronto has 67 skyscrapers over 150 meters tall, 31 are under construction, and 59 are proposed. Chicago has 126 skyscrapers, but only 8 are under construction and 11 are proposed. That puts us on track to leapfrog Chicago, putting us in second place.
Some people might be critical of the fact that it's happening so quickly. What are some of your thoughts on how quickly things are developing?
It's a great city and it's growing, right? So that's going to happen. In terms, we know what the problems are in terms of access to the downtown area. Transit is kind of stressed, but actually this density is going to help all of that. I've heard people describe the city of Toronto as in the lifespan of cities, kind of in teenage years, you know, a little awkward, still trying to find itself. And I think that we're sort of, that's what we're seeing. And some of the problems that have resulted from very fast, very dense development. Well, as a group, we're figuring out how to make that better.
It's actually focused on where we have transit and where we're planning transit. And it's actually on track. It's about 88% of where our growth is happening is actually where we want it to happen. We're actually a place that other people look toward to find out, how do you do tall buildings? What's the best way that you shape and influence tall building development and tall building urbanism, if you will?
Do you have any thoughts on the beauty of it or how our skyline will change in the next 10 years? Do you think aesthetically that it'll be better or worse?
You think of the last 20 years, it's been like fairly plain, fairly flat, like just more the kind of expedient construction. But as we get into these performance goals for the building, making them better and better, we're going to see a much bigger variety of facade design.
As far as when we'll overtake Chicago, it's tough to know the exact timeline. A few of our buildings under construction are set to be complete in 2023, but with many of them still only proposed, it could be a few years before those buildings join in our skyline. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Pharrell Williams is in town, but not for his usual gig. The music star helped design a new condo coming to Midtown.
Music is the thing that can fill a room, touch everyone, but never get in anyone's way. And here, this allows me the opportunity to participate in shaping the space of people's living spaces.
The development headed by Reserve and Westdale Properties will be near Yonge and Eglinton. Williams came to the local builders with an idea of creating the buildings using a nature theme. A software program created a pattern using Williams' song Gust of Wind for the balconies, and water will also be used as a major component, connecting the towers, trickling down interior walls and used throughout the design. Williams says being a part of this project in Toronto is special for him.
The spirit, the morale that's in this city that you feel as soon as you land. You know, my ears might have been stinging from the cold, but my heart was warm because you guys love each other here. It's beautiful. And so the opportunity to be able to participate in the community in the direct way, I jumped at it.
We do kind of get along, don't we? The complex called Untitled will house 750 units, suites. They go on sale in the next couple of months and will start from $400,000 and go up to $1 million. It is expected to be complete in about 5 years. It has been part of the local landscape since the 70s, but the Galleria Mall is now coming down. Crews were on site today tearing down portions of the mall at Dufferin and DuPont. Opened back in 1972, Galleria is making way for an 8-tower condo park and community center development. But the entire mall isn't coming down right away. A number of stores will remain open. The development will include 150 affordable housing units. We asked some area residents today for their thoughts on the changes.
can still go to the grocery stores and stuff like that. Plus, they have the Planet Fitness, so that's a good thing.
The demographics of this neighborhood are a lot of elderly people, a lot of older immigrants of Portuguese origin, and having affordable housing definitely makes it so that's not just getting gentrified like a lot of other parts of Toronto.
I mean, this place started here as a factory, right, when I was a kid. And then the Galleria came and it was a big deal. As long as they keep it community-based, it'll be successful. And it's not just a place where people just live.
The developer telling CBC News the Freshco and other key stores at the mall will remain open until the redevelopment is complete. The whole thing is expected to take about 10 years. A Toronto firefighter is facing charges tonight after a young girl was hit by a fire truck last month. The collision happened on December 16th. Police say the 11-year-old was in a pedestrian crossing on Oakwood Avenue near St. Clair when she was hit by the truck. The vehicle was responding to an emergency call at the time and had its lights and sirens on. The girl was seriously injured and is in hospital recovering. The firefighter is facing a charge of careless driving causing bodily harm and passing a stopped vehicle at a crossover. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced new help today for the families who lost loved ones in Flight 752 disaster, including immediate financial aid, $25,000 for each of those who died, 57 Canadian citizens and 29 permanent residents.
This is immediate assistance for a range of needs that they might have. It is not the compensation that we expect will come and should come from Iran in due course, but these families need help now. And we will be getting this money to them as quickly as we possibly can in the coming days.
The Prime Minister says the money is to help with things like funeral costs and travel expenses, and that any future compensation received from Iran will not be used to reimburse Ottawa. Trudeau announced other measures to help victims' families, including expedited immigration services, access to mental health care, and pro bono legal help. Meanwhile, in Oman, Canada's foreign minister had a rare meeting with his Iranian counterpart today to discuss the tragedy.
How are you?
Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Francois-Philippe Champagne outlined the international community's demands of Iran, including the need for a transparent analysis of the black box data, to which Iran agreed. They both committed to continue discussions. There are vaccines for dozens of known diseases, so why has there been a shift in mindset about vaccination?
We have to be able to remind people what vaccines are, why they're important, and how safe they are.
After the break, we take you inside the anti-vax movement. Our cameras capture the misinformation and fundraising tactics that are being used. That's coming up next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Nearly half of Canadians have some concerns when it comes to vaccines, especially for children. That's due in large part to the misinformation being spread by the anti-vax movement. CBC Marketplace is diving into the inner workings of the movement. Asha Tomlinson has the story.
We're at a massive anti-vax rally in Washington.
This is a war for our children.
With some of the biggest leaders.
Why would we trust them?
Andrew Wakefield. His bogus study in the 90s famously linked vaccines to autism. And Del Bigtree, a controversial filmmaker, speaker, and host.
So if you're telling your clients vaccine injuries don't happen, you are a moron.
The movement goes far beyond this rally. It's a massive misinformation campaign online, contributing to a culture of vaccine hesitancy, now a global health crisis. Nearly half of Canadians have concerns about vaccine safety.
People around the world have stopped vaccinating because of the rhetoric that they've read online. Outbreaks of measles are occurring and people are actually dying. The risks of vaccination are actually very small. 1 in a million may get a severe anaphylactic or severe allergic reaction to the vaccine, but even that is treatable.
Rolling.
We want to understand the tactics used to get people on side. That's why we're undercover at this VIP anti-vax event. People are quick to share their opinions.
Canadians are so apathetic. We need to be more willing to engage in a more radical way.
And others reveal social media strategies to avoid being flagged on sites like Facebook.
We need to not put vaccine even in the name whatsoever. You can't search our name and it won't come up.
At the end of the event, we catch up with Del Bigtree.
There are multiple studies with hundreds of thousands of subjects. That there was one in 2016 and one in 2019.
That said what?
Hundreds of thousands of subjects that said there's no link between the MMR vaccine and autism. Are they untrue?
It's bad science. That's what I would say. Don't do anything you're not sure about.
Don't do anything. A common anti-vax tactic and one of the most powerful.
We have to be able to remind people what vaccines are, why they're important, and how safe they are.
Asha Tomlinson joins us now. Asha, what were some of the biggest concerns you're finding and how are experts dealing with them?
Well, one of the biggest concerns that we hear of is the serious side effects. And what we can tell you is that there are 1 to 2 allergic reactions per million vaccinations, and those reactions are treatable. So you're not looking at anything that's really severe and that can't be treated. And then there's vaccine ingredients. People are really worried about that. So there are things like formaldehyde and aluminum in vaccines, but it's in very small, non-toxic quantities. And when you look at everyday exposure, I mean, you could eat a pear and it has 120 times more formaldehyde than what you're going to get in a vaccine. Wow. So there's really no danger there. And there's also aluminum in water, even in breast milk. The third biggest concern we heard from vaccine hesitant people was that big pharma is profiting and exploiting the vaccine industry. And we can tell you this, that only 2 to 3% of the pharmaceutical profits worldwide come from vaccines. And in fact, there's many childhood vaccine patents that have expired, and physicians' offices often lose money when they administer vaccinations. So it really isn't a money-making venture. So when you look at all that in its totality and you think about it, right, the benefits really do outweigh the risks.
Some really important information in this piece. Thank you, Asha.
You're welcome.
You can watch Asha's full investigation on tonight's episode of Marketplace. That's at 8 p.m. right here on CBC Television, and of course streaming anytime on CBC Gem.
I still have quite close friends there and family too, so that's, I'm scared for them.
After the break, dozens gather here in Toronto outside the Australian consulate to urge governments to do more on climate change, especially the Australian government, which denies climate change has anything to do with the fires. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
all of the windows in the house are filled with snow, which is the first time I've ever seen it. I haven't experienced this type of wind.
Cars have been forced off the road, businesses closed, and St. John's has a state of emergency in place tonight as Newfoundland gets slammed by a major storm. As much as 70 centimeters of snow is expected to fall by the time the storm runs its course tomorrow. And Colin, I've had friends from Newfoundland tell me when they get hit like this, sometimes it covers the whole front door. They can't even get out. And we're seeing pictures of that right now coming in from Newfoundland.
Yeah, it's incredible. You open the door and it's a wall of snow in front of you. Yeah, and I mean, this is happening now and it carries on into tomorrow. So the totals of that 50 to 75 centimeters, it's a couple of days. But it is possible they could exceed their one-day snowfall record, which is 68 centimeters. So that's a record I think nobody wants to beat, but they may be seeing that there. Very serious conditions. Now, we've got our own snowstorm to talk about. It's a little different, still makes for some poor travel conditions. Our temperature is -9 right now. The winds have eased back a little bit, so the wind chill's not nearly as significant on top of that. This is another look at what we have for the warning. So Environment Canada has issued snowfall warnings all across southern and eastern Ontario, 10 to 20 centimeters, a point at which some of this could turn into a bit of a mix, but that's after accumulating, and also strong winds. So that means it'll be blowing around and reducing visibility. Most of it happens on Saturday, but there's some after effects into Sunday. Cloud deck has been moving in. Wasn't it nice to have sunshine earlier today, even if it was so crisp out there? Well, that cloud deck moving in, and southwestern Ontario seeing towards midnight the light snow. We may get some flurries overnight in the GTA, but the main thing isn't coming in. The main system isn't coming in till tomorrow morning, say 7, 8, and then stretching eastward. We get the snow accumulating. It becomes more intense, blows around. Then, as the temperature continues to rise into tomorrow evening, that's when we could see a bit of a mix around the GTA, and that would be on top of the snow, so it would be good to try and shovel or get rid of any of what you can before we see that so it doesn't freeze on top. Into Sunday, because the winds are going to be gusty and still strong, especially in the morning on Sunday, that's when there'll still be maybe some flurries, but snow on the ground blowing around where it's not been tamped down or iced over by rain. So still some visibility issues Sunday morning. In a few spots from the winds, we'll see some snow squalls setting up. So that wouldn't be good until the afternoon until they die off. But otherwise, Sunday afternoon is a better time to travel than any other point through this weekend. Snow accumulations around 15 centimeters, southwestern Ontario, headed towards Toronto, the GTA. We're probably more in that 15 to 20, closer to the 10 when you go around the Golden Horseshoe, and further to the north when we get into cottage country. That's where we're maybe talking about closer to the 20 in that range. So by tomorrow afternoon, the temperature coming up to about 1 degree, but it will rise to about 3 degrees after that. And that's why we have the mix. Then some flurries into Sunday. The temperature drops off again, but it will eventually climb towards midweek next week, Dwight. And something else, look at these, some sun coming with it too.
Just have to get through the weekend. Thank you, Colette.
Yes, we do. You're welcome.
So, are you ready for this weekend? Ali Chasson joins us now. And Ali, you found people are getting ready for the storm in all kinds of ways.
Including with chips. Storm chips, to be exact. Now, Dwight, when we talk about these storm preparation types of stories, we tell you all about the different salt trucks and plows that are out on the streets. But here's a question. Have you prepared your pantry? Snowstorms to the west of us and snowstorms out east. Get ready, Toronto. It's our turn. Okay, 15 centimeters is a few flakes compared to the 70 that blanketed the Maritimes this week, so maybe let's look to them for advice.
Bread, milk, and an essential for every blizzard, storm chips.
I pack down with whatever I can, usually anything that don't need to be cooked, just in case power goes.
Okay. Don't have to tell us twice. So, there's a snowstorm coming to Toronto tomorrow. What chips are you getting?
Ketchup.
How about you? What are you getting?
I'm more like of a dried banana type of guy.
What?
Yeah, you know, like the mangoes and stuff, the little crispy ones. Yeah, that.
Is this like a New Year's resolution? You've got like some health kit going on with your storm chips too?
Yeah, just more healthy.
People from the UK out here putting their own spin on it. You would have storm crisps.
Yes, for sure.
What flavor of storm crisps would you be getting?
Salt and vinegar.
But for East Coasters, it's been a tradition going back years.
Because from the Maritimes, it's a part of the deal. You have a storm and you get chips.
Guys, I actually found the storm chips. Have a look at this. The gang's all here. Barbecue, salt and vinegar, ketchup, creamy dill. Have a try. Ooh, okay. Oh yeah. I gotta meet these guys who came up with this.
November 2015 is when we launched it officially. And as a bit of a gimmick almost, not thinking it would really take off, and it's been a phenomenon ever since.
Yeah, like it seems like every weather story that comes out of the Maritimes, there's someone saying, get your storm chips.
People have a lot of fun with it, so it's something to bond over, a little camaraderie in, I guess, bonding over the misery of snow, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, here in Toronto, we have what we call a snowstorm.
I wouldn't say take joy in your misery of snow, but we certainly, I think we've got a little worse down here.
Whether it's a Toronto snowstorm or a Newfoundland type of snowstorm, here's some helpful advice.
Stay safe.
And?
And eat chips.
Do you like having a lot of snow?
Yes.
Why?
It's fun to play outside with snow.
Yeah?
Yeah. And pretty much I get to go outside and do lots of things indoors.
Yeah.
Like watch TV, play games all day.
Yeah. And maybe hunker down with some storm Doritos?
Yeah. Lots of Doritos.
If it were up to me, I'm more of a flamin' hot Cheetos kind of gal. You know, it's spicy, keeps you warm when it's cold outside. I don't know. I'll take any excuse to stay indoors and snack. Dwight.
Fires. Protesters both in and outside of Australia have demanded more action on climate change from the country's leadership, including here in Toronto. Philip Shannock has more.
As Australia burns, there's simmering anger here. After gathering at Queen's Park, they marched on the Australian consulate on Bloor Street East. This 10-year-old moved from Sydney, Australia, last year.
It's really, really scary, and it's quite shocking and upsetting.
She can't believe the devastation she's seeing from news reports.
I still have quite close friends there and family too, so that's I'm scared for them.
Dozens gathered in the frigid cold here to send a message to the government there, where climate change is being linked to one of the worst fire seasons on record. At least 26 people have lost their lives in the fires, and more than 10 million hectares have burned since the bushfire season began. And thousands of protesters have blocked main streets in major cities across the country, as climate scientists warn the frequency and intensity of bushfires will only get worse as Australia becomes hotter and drier. While Canada has sent firefighters to help there, protesters here say the world cannot ignore what they call a climate emergency.
A message to the government of Australia today to take the climate crisis seriously and to value the knowledge of Indigenous people who have been protecting their lands for millennia, and to really take action and to reduce their emissions, to take everything seriously and to make climate action a focus moving forward.
Protesters say Australia's current climate policies need to change, as greenhouse gas emissions there continue to rise and the country remains one of the biggest exporters of coal. Philip Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
Could a Canadian invention not only help fight Australia's fires, but also keep the country's soil uncontaminated?
It's terrible. As a wildland firefighter, I've seen some big fires, but nothing to that scale or magnitude. We've had people reach out to us over the last few weeks about, how can we help, what can we do to help?
Foam used on wildfires can be toxic, so this Ontario team created a safer alternative. That story is coming up. It's clear from Australia's ongoing experience, fires can be very destructive, but so can materials used to fight fires. Now, some Ontario firefighters have come up with a solution that extinguishes flames without contaminating soil or groundwater with harmful chemicals. Julie Ireton explains.
This 2017 fire outside Smiths Falls was intense and frightening. But the lingering effect of this blaze was the contamination of the well water in the surrounding neighborhood. Chemicals found in toxic firefighting foam was found coming out of the taps of nearby homes.
Hotworks, we finally got the final packaging.
This team in Napanee wanted a non-toxic alternative to the kinds of foams commonly sprayed on residential and wildfires. Quincy Emons has been a volunteer firefighter for more than 20 years.
We started learning more about what was in the foams. We found out that they were a lot were toxic. We felt that we could do better, and that's what we started Fire Rain.
These firefighters have created a patented gel made of canola oil, cornstarch, and other food-grade ingredients.
We wanted to make a product that was safe enough to eat. And we believe that not only does the product address the performance limitations of existing firefighting products, but also it addresses the environmental concerns of those products as well.
The creators say their tests show that mixed with water, the gel can put out fires faster and with less water. They've also created a spray to prevent fires during small construction or plumbing projects around the home. Municipal fire departments in the Napanee, Kingston, and Peterborough areas are now using the eco-gel at calls.
We had a tractor-trailer fire with new cars on it. They were able to stop that from spreading down the trailer into the newer cars. And we had a garage fire that we knocked down relatively quick using the eco-gel.
Fire Rain wishes its invention could help crews down under as bushfires burn in Australia.
It's terrible. As a wildland firefighter, I've seen some big fires, but nothing to that scale or magnitude. We've had people reach out to us over the last few weeks about, how can we help, what can we do to help?
They're now talking to potential partners in Australia about licensing their products there. But before it's used on wildfires in Canada or abroad, the gel needs certification from the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
It does seem a little strange that we have to go to the United States to certify our product to have it dropped on Canadian soil, but looking at the efforts that are happening internationally, you do need to have products that are plug and play with international jurisdictions.
Studies conducted by the University of Guelph and St. Lawrence College back up the company's claims when it comes to its safety and effectiveness. The company also hopes Ontario's Ministry of Natural Resources will use their new invention during the next wildfire season. Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Tight pants and fast cars don't make you Batman, Mike. Boss!
Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are back together, and while they may be a little older, they're ready for one last ride in Bad Boys for Life. The third and final installment of the Bad Boys trilogy hits theaters today, but doesn't live up to the hype of the 1995 original. Eli gives us his review after the break.
One last time. Try to do this right. No gunshots, no dead bodies. Well, you know, if I recall correctly, the last couple dead bad guys belong to you.
The year was 1995. Coolio and TLC were atop the music charts, and Will Smith and Martin Lawrence hit the big screen in a buddy cop adventure. The Bad Boys were born. Now the boys are back together in the new film, Bad Boys for Life. Eli Glasner joins us now with his review. Both of these bad boys are like me, now in their 50s.
Not really boys.
Are they still good?
Yeah. I don't know how good they are, and I don't think they're boys, but they're back to the same old, same old. And when we catch up with the guys, it's Miami. I mean, they're still soaking up the rays. It looks like a never-ending Pitbull music video, you know, the bikinis, the beach, all of that. And that's where we catch up with Mike and Marcus, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, racing to a hospital on a mission. Let's take a look.
Miami PD, make a hole, make a hole. Make a hole, Miami PD. Go, go.
Sorry.
Daddy! You a papa.
Ah, there you go. Marcus is a granddad, and so you know what? He's got to that point where he's thinking, I don't need to do this anymore. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a new baby to smother with love. I'm done. I'm done with the cops and the chaos. He is ready, yes, ladies and gentlemen, to retire. Let's take a look.
Mike, we got more time behind us than in front. Man, please. I'm gonna be running down criminals till I'm 100. Not me. I'm retiring. What happened to Bad Boys for Life? It's time we be good men.
So, Marcus wants to be good. Mike wants to be Mike. Mike is still living the life, or at least going through the motions. This is a man in denial, and he's compensating with the fast cars, the suits, and all of that. Now, he's still very formidable when it comes to knocking back the bad guys, much to the consternation of his captain. Take a look.
Look at this mess. It's carnage.
I didn't do all this.
You didn't shoot anybody?
Well, come on, Cap. You know I shot some people.
Yeah. You can't have Bad Boys without Joe Pantaleone as the very vexed captain.
Okay, so we have to be honest here.
Yeah.
Did the return of Mike and Marcus live up to the expectations? Because it's been a long time, and the originals were pretty good. They were fun.
It exceeded my expectations, but that's because they were down there somewhere. Look, when I saw the trailer of Bad Boys, like Bad Boys 3, like really?
Yeah.
20? We don't know.
Decades
we're good.
later.
We're good. Like, this is ridiculous. And then when I saw Martin Lawrence, because Will Smith, okay, he's still an action guy.
Around, yeah.
Martin Lawrence at 54, sliding across the hood of a car, I had concerns. But what I wasn't ready for was how sincere he would be. This is why it works, Dwight. Martin is playing his age. Martin is playing a guy saying, look, I'm a family guy. I'm a man of God. I want to just now enjoy myself, relax, and just stop with the nonsense. And that's something that Martin can sell. Now, what happens then is that there's a threat from Mexico targeting Mike, and Mike, the one guy he can trust, of course, is his old buddy. So let's get the band back together again. They do the manly fist bump, and they're off to the races. But then what Marcus does with his new mindset is he's the reality check on the, you know, super cop shenanigans, like this scene when they're chasing after a witness and a body falls on his car.
Oh, this is my wife's car. Come to the front door. She knows. She always knows.
Guys, the wife calls him just as the car gets smashed. So then what does Will Smith do? It begins with the typical kind of bluster and bravado. But what's also interesting is that the threat that he's facing is from his background, a personal nature from Mexico, and that forces him to actually look at, you know, where did this bad boy begin? Who is Mike Lowry? How did Mike Lowry start? Who taught Mike to be Mike? And so it's actually, I wouldn't say deep, but not that shallow. There's a layer of introspection to Bad Boys for Life that I wasn't prepared for.
All right, so the Bad Boys, the brand is an action brand.
Right.
So Does this have action with grandfathers playing the action heroes? Like...
So it's actually the one thing that I think is missing. Not that there isn't action, but the action that I was expecting. Look, the first two movies were directed by Michael Bay. Michael Bay was Captain Fireball. No one blows things up. Like, you know the guys walking away from the explosion in slow motion? He did that.
Michael Bay,
That's Michael Bay. So this is the new movie, and it looks fine and it's flashy, but this is the classic. This is from Bad Boys 2, that highway chase where they're driving down the freeway and they're flinging cars at them, and this is like vehicular chaos. This is mechanical ballet. It is glorious. There is nothing in the new movie that it actually rises to those levels of absurdity. But I will say, what's interesting, here's the surprise for Bad Boys number 3. Yeah, it's not bigger, it's not louder, it's actually more self-aware. It's in a very 2020 kind of way about these guys in their middle age dealing with their issues with a couple of twists along the way. And if that's what it means to grow up, you know, I'm okay. I'll let them stay Bad Boys. 3.5 stars out of 5.
I might have to check it out, because I'm old too. All right, thank you, Eli.
You're welcome.
For a snowy Saturday. Colette's back after the break to tell us just how much snow to expect over the weekend. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's the first sign the Olympics are almost here. The giant Olympic rings were installed in Tokyo today, pulled across the Tokyo Bay by a tugboat. They are more than 30 meters high and 15 meters across. They will be installed at Marine Park, where the marathon swimming and triathlon events will take place. And although it feels like winter today, summer has come early with the Toronto International Boat Show. It opens today and runs until January 26th. We went to check out some of the highlights, including a very sporty squirrel.
Welcome to the Toronto Boat Show. So this is North America's largest indoor boat show. So for 62 years now, we've been helping boaters plan their summer. Where we've got over 1,200 new boats on display, for everything from 6 to 60 feet, canoes, kayaks, sailboats, cruisers, pontoon boats. There's something here for everybody's boating lifestyle and their budget.
This is the 2019 Azimuth S6. It's 60 feet long and 15 feet 7 wide. This one has an MSRP of about $3.7 million Canadian.
Oh yeah, I could see it sitting in my yard in the near future. No, it depends if the Automax ever comes through. But no, we were here at the show and saw it sitting here, and it's like, I've never seen a boat this size. I wanted to see it, and it's absolutely incredible.
Well, we're from Keswick, and we've been boating on Lake Simcoe almost 10 years now. We had a large boat, and then we stepped down to a small boat for a little while, and we're hoping to get back into a large one. Hence coming and looking at this one today.
Man, I love it, all of this. I drive boats to the island, to Toronto Island, like I was saying. I do taxiing tours, but they're pontoons, so it's not this size exactly. But yeah, man, I love everything nautical.
Well, my dad started this all as a joke in 1979, and it just blossomed, and here we are 40 years later. Well, we were out on a houseboat, and he actually lost his life in a boating accident while rescuing his grandfather. And because he lost his life because he didn't have a life jacket, we put a life jacket on Twiggy, and we started promoting water safety. And here we are just traveling around, making sure everybody's nice and safe when they go on the water.
It's important. Everyone's got to have the right safety equipment on them, and even Twiggy here is wearing her life jacket. And even in the motorboat, you can see you got the driver, and you also have a spotter watching out for Twiggy if she falls off.
Yeah, we're fans. Twiggy's sending the right message to everybody. The message from you about what we have to deal with, and commiserating with our friends in Newfoundland and Labrador.
A little solidarity for our friends there. That's right. They're going through something much worse than us, but we have our own snowstorm to deal with this weekend, and we do have these snowfall warnings in place. So 10 to 20 centimeters, and do you hear that? That's the sound of Dwight pulling out the storm chips. And we do see that we're going to have this moving through mostly on Saturday, turning into a bit of a mix as we get into the later evening hours, and then some strong winds in there too will be blowing that snow around, so reduced visibility as well. Looks like the GTA were around that 15-centimeter range. So yes, in Newfoundland they do storm chips.
Yes.
That's one thing they want to get their snacks all in if they're going to be shut in.
So this is really a thing.
But this morning walking my dog, I met a woman whose son and daughter-in-law are in Newfoundland,
yes,
and they're doing this weekend pairings. So wine and chip pairings. I thought that's what we need to do.
Merlot and salt and vinegar. That's what I'm doing.
I've got
you got a cab there?
Barbecue with the Sauvignon Blanc.
All right. We're with our friends out in Newfoundland. It's been tough out there for them, but they're going to get through it. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Talia Ricci has your next local news after the National tonight at 11. There's actually water in here. We won't tell them. For news anytime, especially to stay on top of this weekend storm, download the CBC News app. You can check online anytime at cbctoronto.ca. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here on Monday.